Motorcycles after supporters of the defeated candidate Mayor Hussein Mousavi blocked roads with burning rubbish. Earlier there were clashes in what observers describe as the most serious unrest in the capital in a decade. Mousavi's supporters chanted, "Down with the dictator."
What is happening is a dictatorship is being established in Iran.
But with official results showing Ahmadinejad has swept to power with twice the number of votes as Mousavi, winning nearly 63%, Ahmadinejad told the public the ballot was free and fair.
Nearly 40 million people took part in a total of free election, which means in itself this sets a record by itself, a great record in the whole of the world. They chose the path to the future, the path of dignity and pride.
In a statement, Mousavi has refused to surrender.
I strongly protest the many obvious violations, and I'm warning I will not surrender to this dangerous charade. The result of such performance by some officials will jeopardize the pillars of the Islamic Republic and will establish tyranny.
The Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei instructed that everyone, including the competitors, must unanimously support the chosen and respected president. The United States has been monitoring events in Iran closely.
The United States has refrained from commenting on the election in Iran. We obviously hope that the outcome reflects the genuine will and desire of the Iranian people.
Mousavi's campaign headquarters has urged supporters to show restraint. The authorities blocked mobile phone text messages to try to stop news of protests spreading. And there are reports that reformist newspapers are being targeted. But it hasn't stopped people pouring onto the streets. Mousavi still has the option of pursuing his grievances through the courts, and a closer examination of the computerized record of ballots is likely in the coming days. Further complaints from the Mousavi camp are also a possibility. But for the moment, it's President Ahmadinejad once again. Tanya Page, Aljazeera.
Well, the defeated presidential candidate, Mir Hussein Mousavi, has called on supporters to avoid violence. A little earlier, I spoke to Taimur Nabili in Tehran, and I asked him whether the violence that he witnessed outside Aljazeera's office was still going on.
No, the disruption has passed on, Julie. I think you'll find that most of the gathering tends, in northern Tehran at least, to be up in that direction. This is one of the main routes up towards where a lot of the youths have been hanging out on the streets in past weeks, and a short while ago they decided to make their way up there by smashing the windows and emptying rubbish bins and setting fire in the streets as part of the entertainment, I suppose, along the way. Just a couple of minutes ago as well, we saw the riot police heading by. The riot police in Tehran now tend to travel in twos on small motorbikes, better mobility, quicker access to the trouble areas, and they've been heading up that way too. Now, what we have seen here was ugly when it was happening, and the shopkeepers tomorrow morning will, of course, be decrying what has been going on. We're still not entirely sure whether it represents a trend, whether it represents an organized campaign, and whether it will get any worse.
Taimur, we heard Ahmadinejad's speech a little earlier. He didn't exactly reach out to those who were on the streets.
He didn't seem to exactly reach out, did he? He spoke about how he thought the election was free and fair. He spoke about how he had a grand vision for the country and what he believed in for the future of Iran. It was a little bit more like a campaign speech than it was a victory speech, but it was certainly talk of celebration, talk about the future, and no real talk about what had happened on the streets. Before the election, there had been suggestion in many circles that the strength of what we'd seen on the streets over the course of the campaign may have played into his political thinking, may have suggested that there was room and demand for a little bit of liberalization, for a little bit of a softer tone. But in this speech, he didn't seem to suggest that he had got that message or that he planned to do anything about it. The one area of concern that he did show was to suggest to the nation's youth that he really did have their best interests at heart. Whether they decide that that was a good enough response to the kind of demands that they seem to have been making over the past week remains to be seen.
And of course, Taimur, Mousavi has asked for calm, and he keeps saying that he won't give in. Where do you think things for him will now go from here?
He has not made any further comment tonight, and he obviously is still considering his position. There is a camp out there that suggests that he is prepared to fight on and determined to do so, and he is being backed by the former president, Hashemi Rafsanjani. They're a powerful grouping in Iran, a strong political force, and if they do decide to make more trouble, it could lead to some serious strains in the political fabric here. But there are good reasons for them not to do so. The supreme leader has said and made his decision that this election result must be accepted and we should move on. And taking on the supreme leader is not something that anyone would do lightly, and in fact is not something that Mousavi himself has shown any inclination to do. So how he decides to proceed could be simply confined to going through the legal system here and trying to get some kind of redress, or it could be for the moment to focus on the recount process that will take place over the next few days. There will be a re-examination of the computer ballots just to make sure that everything has been in line. Perhaps once that is over, he will accept the result. However, for the moment, we haven't had any definitive statement as what his future steps are going to be.
Taimur Nabili there in Tehran. Thanks very much. Well, earlier I spoke with opposition activist Hassan Masali, who supported Mir Hussein Mousavi in the election campaign. But he told me that despite the polls' controversy, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad will remain the victor.
Ahmadinejad will be the president, declared as a president, but I think he will face many confrontation with the people and also inside the government in future.
So what about Mr. Mousavi? What does he do now? I mean, he can take his grievances to the courts and he has some support from the higher-ups, doesn't he? What do you think will happen next?
Mousavi, I think he wanted try to change some his, especially foreign policy, to negotiate with Western countries, Europe, United States, and not talking too much against Israel. And that's why they didn't want that such a person should be elected. So Khamenei selected another person.
Will Ahmadinejad stay as president? Do you think Mr. Mousavi has any chance of overturning the result?
No, I think they will have no powers to do, because the person that he make the end decision is Khamenei, and already he made his decision, I think.
Now, North Korea has wasted no time in reacting to the tough new sanctions against it agreed by the UN on Friday. Pyongyang